Once upon a time, in a small town nestled by the sea, there lived a young man named Robrat. He had grown up with the love and care of his father, a humble fisherman, but his life had taken a turn when his mother passed away when he was only a boy. The absence of his mother left a hole in his heart, one that he never thought could be filled. But life, as it often does, had other plans. When Robrat turned 22, his father remarried a woman named Evelina. She was kind-hearted, with a quiet beauty that often went unnoticed by the world. She had come from a distant village, and her gentle nature had slowly earned the trust of Robrat's father. However, to Robrat, the idea of another woman filling his mother's place felt unnatural. Despite his father's happiness, he remained distant from Evelina, unable to accept her as part of his family. Evelina, on the other hand, was determined to build a relationship with Robrat. She understood his pain and grief, as she, too, had lost loved ones in her life. She wanted to be a mother to him, even if he couldn't see her as one. She never forced her presence upon him, but rather waited patiently for him to come to her when he was ready. One evening, when the summer air was thick with the scent of salt water, Robrat found himself alone on the cliffs overlooking the ocean. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with hues of pink, orange, and purple. It was a moment of rare peace for him, a fleeting break from the weight of his emotions. As he stood there, lost in thought, he heard footsteps behind him. Turning, he saw Evelina approaching. Her soft smile seemed to carry the warmth of the sun itself. She didn't speak at first, simply standing beside him and watching the waves crash below. It was a quiet moment, but it spoke volumes. Robrat felt an unexpected comfort in her presence. She wasn't his mother, and yet there was something about her that filled the emptiness he had carried for so long. After a long silence, Evelina spoke softly. "I know it's hard for you, Robrat. I know I can never replace her, but I can be here for you if you'll let me." Her words were gentle but filled with an understanding that reached deep into Robrat's soul. For the first time in years, he felt the stirrings of something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in a long time: hope. He turned to her, searching her face for any hint of insincerity, but all he saw was love, quiet, patient, unwavering love. He opened his heart to her in that moment, not as a replacement for his mother, but as someone who truly cared for him. Over time, their bond deepened. Robrat began to look at Evelina not as his father's wife, but as a woman who had come into his life at a time when he needed her the most. He learned to see her not just as a stepmother, but as a partner, a confidant, and ultimately, someone he could rely on. Their relationship grew in subtle, unspoken ways. Evelina would leave little notes for him, reminding him of the beauty in the world. Robrat would find her watching him from the kitchen, a smile on her face as she prepared his favorite meal. There was no rushing, no pressure, just a quiet, steady love that blossomed over time. The more they shared, the more Robrat realized how deeply he had come to care for her. What started as a quiet affection grew into a love that neither of them had expected. It wasn't the fiery passion of young love, but it was something deeper, something more enduring. They had come to know each other in a way that few people ever did, building a life not from grand gestures, but from small, meaningful moments. One evening, after a long day, they sat on the porch together, watching the stars appear one by one in the clear night sky. Robrat turned to Evelina, his heart full, and said the words he had never thought he would speak. "I never thought I could love anyone like this," he admitted, his voice a mix of wonder and gratitude. "You've become so much more than I ever expected." Evelina's eyes softened, and she took his hand in hers. "I didn't expect it either, Robrat. But sometimes life has a way of bringing the right people into our lives when we least expect it." Their love, though unconventional, had grown into something pure and beautiful. It wasn't a love built on perfection or the traditional rules of romance, but one that had flourished out of respect, kindness, and understanding. In the end, they found each other not in spite of their differences, but because of them. And as they stood together, watching the world around them, They knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, with a love that had stood the test of time. And so, Robrat and Evelina's story became a testament to the power of love in its many forms, how it can heal, transform, and bring light into the darkest of places. As the years passed, Robrat and Evelina's connection only grew stronger. The town had started to accept their bond, though whispers still floated occasionally. Some people in the village were quick to judge, but Robrat had long since stopped caring about their opinions. What mattered most to him was the love and comfort he found in Evelina. She had not only become the woman he loved, but also the one he cherished and trusted more than anyone else. In the mornings, Robrat would walk along the shoreline with Evelina, her laughter like music carried by the wind. They'd talk about dreams, hopes, and even the mundane details of their day-to-day lives. Each conversation, no matter how small, deepened their understanding of each other. Evelina, with her quiet wisdom, would encourage Robrat to pursue the things he loved, even when he hesitated. One day, after Robrat had spent months working on a new boat with his father, Evelina surprised him by suggesting they take a trip together away from the familiar surroundings of the town. She knew how much he had been giving of himself to his father and the village, and she wanted him to have time to nurture the bond they had built. "I've been thinking," Evelina began, her voice soft yet certain, as they sat on the porch one evening. "What if we took a trip somewhere? Just the two of us. Somewhere quiet and peaceful, away from everything. We deserve a little time just for ourselves." The thought of leaving everything behind, even for just a few days, filled Robrat with a strange sense of excitement. He had never really imagined himself taking such a step, but the idea of being with Evelina, alone in a new place, stirred something deep within him. After much planning, they set off to a small coastal village a few days' journey away. The village was nothing like their own, a tranquil retreat where time seemed to slow. There, with nothing but the sound of the waves and the warmth of each other's company, they spent days walking along golden beaches, exploring hidden coves and sharing long, quiet dinners by the firelight. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in breathtaking shades of purple and gold, they found themselves on a secluded beach. Robrat stood beside Evelina, her hand in his as they watched the ocean's waves gently roll in. There was a sense of peace in the air, an unspoken understanding that life, with all its twists and turns, had brought them to this perfect moment. "You know," Robrat began softly, his voice full of emotion, "I never could have imagined that life would bring me someone like you. Not just a stepmother, but someone who would help me heal, help me find joy again." Evelina smiled, turning to face him fully. "You've been my heart's compass, Robrat, and I've loved every moment of seeing you grow, not just as my stepson, but as the man you are today." It was then that Robrat, looking into her eyes, knew with certainty that this was more than a stepmother's love. This was a love that had blossomed in its own time, in its own way. It was a love neither of them had planned, but one that they had come to cherish deeply. As the days turned into weeks, Robrat returned to his life with Evelina by his side. He had learned to see the world not just through his own eyes, but through hers as well. She had opened his heart to the possibilities of love that went beyond the conventional, beyond the limitations he had placed on himself. With Evelina's encouragement, Robrat eventually took over the family business, running the small fishing fleet his father had started. Evelina, always by his side, helped him navigate the challenges of the business, offering support whenever he needed it. They became a team, her steady wisdom complementing his passionate drive. But it wasn't just in business that their partnership thrived. Their relationship, built on trust and respect, only deepened with each passing year. They celebrated the milestones of life together, from the quiet birthdays to the more profound moments, like the birth of Robrat's first child. The love they shared had transcended their initial awkwardness and resistance, blossoming into something genuine, rare, and unbreakable. Their home, now filled with laughter and joy, had become a sanctuary, a place where love could thrive without judgment or fear. As Robrat stood beside Evelina, watching their children play in the yard on a warm summer's evening, he realized something profound. Love didn't always come in the form you expected. Sometimes, it was about finding the right person when you least anticipated it, someone who helped you heal and encouraged you to be your best self. Evelina, his companion, his partner, his love, was no longer the woman who had entered his life as his father's new wife. She was the one who had given him something far more valuable, a love that was constant, unshakable, and true. And in the quiet of their life together, as the years passed, Robrat knew that no matter where the tide of life carried them, they would always find their way back to each other, forever bound by a love that had stood the test of time.